To surmise, the defense claims that prior to Officer Meekins being cut by Jake Marshall, who was disguised as Detective Goodman, another incident took place in that evidence room.
The blood mark on the locker proves this.
Very well, then tell us. When did this first incident occur? Proof must be presented.
Proof that shows when the murder took place. There's only one piece of evidence that can show that.
Now then, will the defense please present its evidence? What shows when the first crime took place?
Take that! If the crime took place inside the evidence room, then the perpetrator would have had to have entered the room. In order to do so, an ID card is required.
An ID card? Oh! The ID card record!
Officer Meekins brought the Blue Badger panel into the evidence room at...
Let's see here. 4:50 p.m. If the crime took place before that time, then it would be 4:40 p.m. Ah! Ah! Miles Edgeworth! Just what have you done?
I never figured you had the nerve, boy.
Put off the act, witness. It doesn't take a lot of thought to figure out it couldn't have been me.
Nope. I ain't getting it.
I'm afraid I don't understand either.
It's clear from the luminol test that blood was there. However, when the second crime took place, both Officer Meekins and Officer Marshall failed to notice the blood. That means the blood from the first crime was wiped away by the real murderer. I would have had just 10 minutes to murder the victim, carry his body away, and clean up the blood. Unfortunately, that's physically impossible.
That would mean the crime must have taken place before Mr. Edgeworth entered the evidence room.
Let's look at the chart again. There's only one other card number remaining. 7777777.
Talk about a lucky number.
But wait, that doesn't make sense. How could Officer Goodman have entered the evidence room?
Since there's no record of his card being used beforehand, he must have entered along with the real murderer. That's the only plausible explanation. He went in with 7777777.
Mr. Edgeworth, please look into this ASAP. Find out whose ID number is 77777777.
That's 17 too many, Your Honor. Unfortunately, I'm unable to look up the owner of that ID card. At least, at present. What?
Explain yourself, son.
The ID number 7777777 belongs to someone with a rank of captain or higher. Someone who is a so-called executive officer. We don't have the authority to inquire into such a person's identity. Objection! But that's ridiculous. Just how are we... I'm not finished talking, Mr. Wright. There is one situation in which we can be granted such authority.
If an official charge filed against an executive is accepted.
An official charge?
You're all alike, aren't you? With your cover-ups and your forgeries. That's how the prosecutor's office operates.
Objection! I take pride in my work, Officer Marshall. I would appreciate it if you would keep your slander to yourself.
Slander, is it? Okay. Let me ask a question.
Yes.
No, not to you. To her, the defendant sitting over there. Your own little executive.
Lana? Objection! Don't be stupid. She's charged with murder. Of course we've looked up her ID number, and it's not 7777777.
Don't play me for a fool, partner. That's not what I want to ask. All I want to know is one thing about that incident.
The SL9 incident?
Answer me this, Chief Prosecutor. In that trial 2 years ago, did you really only use legitimate evidence?
Do you need the witness to repeat his question, Chief Prosecutor?
I heard him fine, Mr. Edgeworth.
2 years ago, I was in charge of the prosecution for that trial. At the time, we
Occasionally, we felt the powerlessness of the law. At least, I did.
Lana?
I became a prosecutor in order to suppress crime with the law. But before I realized it, we were the ones being suppressed by the law.
Defendant, just what are you saying?
I'll ask you again, Chief Prosecutor. During that trial 2 years ago, did you really present all the evidence in court? Can you look me, an investigator in that crime, in the eye and say that you did?
Chief Prosecutor, you didn't...
I don't have to, Officer Marshall.
Why don't you answer him?
Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved.
But Lana!
Even if it involved forging evidence.
See? That's what I'm talking about.
No! No!
Order! 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 Order!
Lana's remarks caused such a stir, the chaos in the courtroom could not be quelled. The conclusion of the trial would have to wait until the following day.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Wright. I'm sorry for what my sister said.
Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved.
I didn't know. I never knew the SL9 incident was just another name for the Joe Dark killings.
Sounds like everyone's heard about these killings but me.
Lana wanted Dark convicted so badly. That's why she used me. That's why she used what happened to me.
What do you mean, what happened to you?
It's all there in the file. Joe Dark's last victim was Prosecutor Neil Marshall. When he murdered Officer Marshall's brother, he left behind an incriminating piece of evidence.
But what did you have to do with those killings, Emma?
On the night Prosecutor Neil Marshall was murdered, Joe Dark tried to kill me.
What? He tried to kill you?
Officer Marshall's brother, Neil, was only trying to save me.
So that means you...
Yes, I was a witness in the Joe Dark trial.
I didn't see that one coming.
It happened 2 years ago. It was right about this time of year, too. There was a terrible thunderstorm that day, unusual for the season. I was alone in my sister's office. We were planning to eat dinner together when she finished her work. Then suddenly, this terrifying man came bursting into the office.
Joe Dark.
It seemed like he was running from someone. He pulled out a knife and screamed at me. I didn't know what was going on. Just then, Prosecutor Marshall showed up.
Jake Marshall's brother.
Joe Dark tried to take me hostage. But before he could, Mr. Marshall tackled him. Then,
What happened?
I'll never forget it. Lightning struck, and the lights went out. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck outside the window, lighting up the office for an instant. What I saw then burned a permanent picture in my mind. I can still see it now.
A permanent picture? What did you see in the instant that crime occurred?
Dark knocked down Mr. Marshall, and then raised his knife.
Neil Marshall was stabbed right in front of this poor girl.
I don't remember what happened after that. Apparently, I passed out. When I came to, Lana was cradling me in her arms.
Poor Emma. You've been through so much.
I couldn't bring myself to testify about that instant. I tried, but the words just wouldn't come out. I drew a picture, but it wasn't any good.
2 years ago. You must have been 14. That's understandable.
Once it was all over, I made up my mind. I decided that when I grew up, I'd become a scientific investigator. I want to be able to fight crime with my testimonies and find the evidence to make an airtight case. That way, Lana would never have to forge any.
I see. I think I'm finally starting to understand what makes Emma tick. But there's still something that bothers me about that crime.
I don't remember the moment when Mr. Dark stabbed Mr. Marshall.
So you weren't able to testify about that?
No, I was only asked about when I was attacked. That must be why she made up the crime.
Made it up? You mean provided bogus evidence?
The prosecutor's office wanted that verdict so badly. Lana forged the evidence, and Mr. Edgeworth used it.
Edgeworth?
Yes, but I'm sure he didn't know anything about it. He couldn't have known he was being given false evidence. Even so, that's when it all started. The rumors about Mr. Edgeworth, I mean. It's all my fault. If I could have just testified properly, none of this would have happened.
So it's true, even though he may not have known it. Edgeworth really was involved in falsifying evidence.
After that case ended, Lana was never the same. She became cold, like she is today.
She must not have been able to face up to what she did. Especially not to Emma. There's something that's puzzling me, Emma.
What is it?
You said you were in Lana's office at the time, right?
That's right.
Why then would a serial killer come running in there? Not only that, but he was being chased by a prosecutor?
Oh, there's no mystery there. Joe Dark had been taken in for questioning that day.
Taken in for questioning? You mean by the police?
Of course. This happened at the police department. He tried to run away halfway through the interview and fled into my sister's office.
But why did he run all the way over to your sister's office?
Because the detective offices and the questioning rooms are right across from the elevator.
Across from the elevator? But Lana was the chief prosecutor, wasn't she?
No, silly. Didn't I tell you? 2 years ago, Lana was a detective. She was the best in the entire force.
What? That's news to me.
After the Joe Dark case, she was transferred to the prosecutor's office and made chief prosecutor.
Lana used to be a detective? I better have another talk with her.